What is the underlying gift of addiction? Most people look at addictions as bad things or things that produce only negative results. And for the most part, they're absolutely right. Your addictions are the strongest frightened parts of your personality. It occupies your attention. It focuses your attention on everything that prevents you from growing spiritually. You are in the midst of pain. And this is the biggest pain in your life. This is the one that will not let go. Or more specifically, you will not let go of it. And it is the one that is focusing your attention on the outside world again. On food, on drugs, on genitals, on gambling, on nicotine. You deceive yourself if you think that just changing the world is going to change you. Only you can change you when you change yourself. And there's no reward, there's no punishment, and there's no one else to choose except you. Welcome to another Soul Feast, a feature of the Gary Zukov podcast. I'm so enjoying bringing these to you. And this feast has a very interesting topic. What is the underlying gift of addiction? I think it's a very interesting topic because I feel that most people look at addictions as bad things or negative things or things that produce only negative results. And for the most part, they're absolutely right. And I know because I had an addiction. It was to sex. But there is something about an addiction that I know now, and this is what I want to share with you. An addiction is not a thing that exists separately unto itself. An addiction is a frightened part of your personality. And not only a frightened part, it is the strongest frightened part of your personality that you have. Your addictions are the strongest frightened parts of your personality. They are the parts of your personality that are most in the control of the external world. They are your greatest inadequacies. They obstruct your spiritual growth, as do all of the frightened parts of your personalities. But this one won't go away just by your wanting it to. It's really something that occupies your attention. When you have an addiction, if it's to sex like mine was, I couldn't stop thinking about sex. I couldn't stop looking for sex. I couldn't stop having sex with women. This was even worse than thinking about Oreo cookies or those kind of addictions. Well, that's what an addiction is. It occupies your attention. It focuses your attention on everything that prevents you from growing spiritually. So what's the underlying gift in that? That is the underlying gift. Once you recognize it, you see that you can deal with an addiction the way you deal with any frightened part of your personality, with emotional awareness and with responsible choice. You can consult your intuition. And when you move beyond the control of this frightened part of your personality, now you're really in a place where you can gain momentum in the direction that you want to go, which is toward freedom, toward liberation, toward joy, toward love. Joy, love, meaning, these are things that are beyond your ability to even consider when you're in the control of an addiction. And so every addiction offers you an opportunity to challenge and move beyond the control of not simply a frightened part of your personality, but the big one. The one that is keeping you where you are, like an anchor is keeping, a big anchor is keeping a small boat where it is on a lake. And once you cut the chain to that anchor, you can take that boat anywhere you want. But until you do, that anchor is going to hold you right where you are. I wrote a chapter about addiction in The Seat of the Soul. It's called Addiction, and it's about addiction to sex. But it could be about addiction to alcohol, or drugs, or nicotine, or gambling. It's all the same dynamic. And the dynamic requires you, first of all, to acknowledge that you have it. Now, that is a big thing. I know in my addiction, I was with a woman that I wanted to be with, and she said, "You have a problem, and you need to deal with that if you want to be with me." And I thought to myself, no, I don't really have a problem. I'm just a loving person. And when I meet a loving woman, we make love. Isn't that how it should be? That's what I thought. I didn't say that to her. But she obviously could see what I was thinking, and she said, "You have a problem, and you need to fix it now." And so the first step was to say, okay, I have a problem. It's a really little one. She sees more than I see. Everybody did. But as I was with that, I began to see that, I do have an issue. That's bigger than I thought. Yeah, I do have an issue. And I do have a problem, and it's a big problem, all the way up to, oh no, I can't stop. I can't stop. And that's when the work begins. Because then you feel the addiction. Because the addiction itself is not the issue. The issue is the pain that the addiction masks. The issue is always the pain beneath the addiction. Every frightened part of your personality expresses pain. Everyone, 5 sensory humans and multi-sensory humans, share the same pain, the pain of powerlessness. I spoke about this once before, but I'd like to review it quickly. The pain of powerlessness is the pain of wanting to belong and not belonging. It's excruciating. It's the pain of feeling defective, inherently flawed. It's the feeling of wanting to be included, and no one's going to want to include you. It is not wanting to share with anyone the way you see yourself inside. And hopefully they won't either, because they wouldn't want anything to do with you. And this is all very painful. You're not the last one to be chosen for the team. Everybody else goes home and you're still not chosen. That's the pain of powerlessness, experiencing that. When we were 5 sensory, we attempted to mask the pain of powerlessness by changing the world. That's the pursuit of external power, manipulation, and control. Now that we're a multi-sensory species, that doesn't work anymore. In fact, it's the opposite. Pursuing external power now produces only violence and destruction. Without exception. It used to be our good medicine. We needed external power in order to evolve because we needed to survive. And we needed external power in order to survive, to be able to manipulate and control. Now, it doesn't work. It's toxic. It's poisonous. Multisensory humans, like us, instead of trying to change the world, we look inside when we have emotional pain. And we closely examine what we can find there. We're no longer trying to change the world. That's the pursuit of external power. We're looking inside to change inner dynamics, interior dynamics within ourselves. That is the beginning of the creation of authentic power. Then you use your emotional awareness. Now, you know you are in the midst of pain, and this is the biggest pain in your life. This is the one that will not let go, or more specifically, you will not let go of it. And it is the one that is focusing your attention on the outside world again, on food, on drugs, on genitals, on gambling, on nicotine. And again, you deceive yourself if you think that just changing the world is going to change you. Only you can change you when you change yourself. So I entered this because I really wanted to be with this woman. And that took me on an adventure that was remarkable to me. I discovered that an addiction had aspects to it that I could never have dreamed. On the road, I asked myself, for example, on the road to healing and moving beyond this addiction, I asked myself, is it possible for me to create a temptation, an addiction, that's stronger than I can resist? Because it sure feels like I can. And the answer is, yes, I can. I can create an attraction that is stronger than I can resist. That would be my way of unconsciously creating, of unconsciously giving myself permission to behave unconsciously. I never dreamed that could happen. I thought if I encountered an addiction or a temptation that was more than I could resist, that was my permission. This one's stronger than me. Yeah, I can handle all the rest of them, her and her and her, but not her. Well, now I saw clearly that feeling of, yes, now I can do it because I can't resist it, is my doing. I established that in myself and gave myself permission to create unconsciously, and I did that unconsciously. That was quite an experience. The most significant experience came when I realized that I wouldn't be rewarded if I gave up my addiction, if I stopped learning through that way of learning to grow spiritually, and I wouldn't be punished if I didn't. I always thought somebody's up there looking. Maybe it's some deity. Maybe it's some internalized parent. Maybe I'm just the one that's looking. But I always thought if I did the right thing, I'd get rewarded. If I did the wrong thing, I'm going to get punished. And so I'll expect it. But what I didn't expect was that there's no reward and there's no punishment. I could continue learning this way indefinitely, and there would always be learning on this path. I could decide to take another path that didn't include this addiction, and that would lead me to more learning, but I wouldn't get rewarded for it. There would be a difference, though. If I chose the path of the addiction, the path of fear, I would continue to create the painful consequences that I created for myself, always looking for comfort with a woman, but I knew it wasn't a woman, it was just her sexuality. And not even that, just her genitals. That's all I wanted. And once I got them, I didn't have any more use for her. Until later. And then all of that came back again. I also discovered that the women that I was drawn to didn't have any more use for me than I had for them. I always looked at myself as manly. Conquest. Notches on my pistol grip. I wasn't conquering anything. I was being used. The same way I was using them. All of these things were part of really exploring an addiction, in this case, an addiction to sex. But whatever your addiction is, it's big. And until you move beyond the control of it, you're not going to be able to give the gifts that you were born to give, to experience joy or meaning or fulfillment in your life. You cannot. Another thing I discovered was that my attraction, now this didn't happen all at once. This was a series of things that happened, that experiences I had, then I realized that I was equally attracted to both possibilities, leaving my addiction behind or continuing my addiction. And I was the only one here. I was the only one here. There was nothing else except me and these two possibilities. And what I discovered was I'm equally attracted to both of them. There's nothing that leans me one way or the other. There's nothing that says, yeah, go that way. That's really going to be the best. Or go that way. That's really going to be the best. I'm equally attracted to both. Now what? Now what? Now what? I didn't realize it at the time, but by moving beyond the control of this addiction, I had put myself in the position that all of us are in all the time without our awareness. Now what? And there's no reward, there's no punishment, and there's no one else to choose except you. Now that is an underlying gift because I have never forgotten that experience. I've never forgotten it because it terrified me. The power was in my hands. No one else was there. No one else to offer advice, to say maybe this, maybe that. Just I alone had to choose. And there was nothing to make one choice more attractive than the other. That is the underlying gift of an addiction. The experience of your responsibility for what you do. That's wording it in a different way, but an accurate way. I decided not to continue my addiction. I could have decided otherwise, but I wouldn't be speaking to you now if I had. Because the things that I needed to experience and learn, things that were impossible for me to even consider, such as generosity, compassion, care for other people, awareness of the goodness of the world, awareness of the world as a world of love. I would have said, you kidding me? A world of love? Take a look at this world. Look at it clearly, like I am. Well, I was looking at it, but I was seeing it through the lens of fear, clearly through the lens of fear. That's not necessary. That's an option. That's your choice. You can also look at it clearly through the lens of love, the loving parts of your personality. So now I love to share about addiction, about the power of an addiction, the blessing of an addiction. How can I be so bold or off base to say the blessing of an addiction? I say it with full confidence, knowledge, and solid knowledge, because I know, and you will know, that there is nothing that you will experience in the Earth School that does not serve your spiritual growth. Nothing. And many of those things are painful. They're what we're calling the frightened parts of your personality. And you need to experience them fully. And that means never repressing or repressing or denying or suppressing an emotion, but becoming very familiar with it, completely familiar with it, and then choosing in that moment to put your attention in a loving part of your personality. When I was at that point of choice, as I was moving beyond this addiction, I couldn't find a loving part of my personality to access. That's what was terrifying. There was no frightened part. There was no loving part. There was just I and two choices and my equal attraction to both and no one there to make the choice for me. So I made it. That's what an addiction offers you. And don't think, oh my goodness, I can't do that. That's too big a thing, or that's too painful. Well, it is because fear is painful. How painful is your life when you're in the control of an addiction? How painful is it and how strong is the addiction? You know that yourself. Because every time you decide, I'm not going to light up another smoke, and you start to tremble, and you wind up taking a cigarette out of a pack and lighting it. How strong is your addiction to having a fix? How many times does it feel as though you cannot go farther without injecting or ingesting something to ease the pain? That's how painful your life is. So, going through the experience of an addiction and moving to the other side of it is not more painful than that. And when it's done, and you know it's done because you did it. I have several friends that are in 12-step programs. I have a great deal of admiration for 12-step programs, and especially for the people who created it, the two men. They created it for a 5-sensory species. We are no longer a 5-sensory species. We are a multi-sensory species. And there are things in that program that were helpful and needed to 5-sensory addicts, but that do not serve multi-sensory addicts. Because multi-sensory addicts know that their addiction is not something they're born with, not something that's a medical condition, not something that only God can fix. They know it's a frightened part of their personality, the strongest one they have, their greatest inadequacy. Only they can fix it. And it can't be fixed. It can only be experienced fully and moved beyond the control of. And that's creating authentic power. That's the description of creating authentic power with every single frightened part of your personality. And this is the big daddy. This is the big mama. This is the one that offers you the most. Now, don't think you don't have any addictions. Look inside yourself every time you feel emotional distress or pain. And you will begin to sort out the frightened parts of your personality, and you will see that some of them are stronger than others. Some of them are more difficult to resist than others. And the one that is in your face all the time, you don't have to go inside to look for it. That's your addiction. And everyone's got one. Everyone's got frightened parts of their personalities and loving parts. And you're on the spiritual path now. It's a choice. Don't worry, you're not going to fall back, so to speak. You're not going to unlearn what you've learned. You're not going to unsee what you see. But you can choose to behave as you chose, as you behaved earlier. And you can choose to continue to challenge the frightened parts of your personality and cultivate the loving parts. That's what you were born for. That's why you're in the Earth School. The Earth School is not a place for flunkouts. The Earth School is a place for dedicated, experienced, committed travelers, use that word, souls who are committed to healing parts of their personalities that need healing. They don't experience those parts the way we do as painful and needful. They're in a different, not domain, but realm of experience. We're in the Earth School, where these experiences are made graphic for us, for our benefit, so that we can experience choice. Whose choice? Our choice. And use it as we choose. So this is what I offer to you. Is it valuable to you or not? It's your choice. I'm so happy to be with you again. I'm Gary Zukov. I'm looking forward to being with you again. Oh, I almost forgot to give you a soul step. Take out your journal, the one you have in your jeans pocket, back jeans pocket, or in your purse, or the one you're just carrying because you love it by now, and write inside everything that you discover on this journey. What are the strongest parts of your personality? Frightened. And what is the most frightened and the strongest frightened part of your personality? I don't think it'll take you too long to find this, especially if you're using your integrity and your courage and you're putting them together as you explore your own life. I'm looking forward to seeing you next time.